excited to so excited to welcome you to Quick Hits today. This is going to be a really exciting program for teachers by teachers. So whether you are deep in the thick of school or whether you are joining us from your summer break, we're really excited to share the wealth of knowledge of some all-stars from our NABT community. So a little bit about me. I'm Kirsten Milks. I'm a high school biology teacher in Bloomington, Indiana. And I've been a member of NABT basically for my whole teaching career. I started being invited into this amazing community of educators probably in my second or third year of teaching. Along the way, I've gotten to have a lot of really cool roles. My spouse and I are currently the book editor for the American Biology Teacher, our award-winning journal. I've also been recognized for my work through the New Teacher Biology Teacher Achievement Award, for my State Outstanding Biology Teacher Award, and I got elected to be the 2025 president of NABT. So if I haven't met you yet, I'm excited to get to meet you in person in Anaheim this year or in St. Louis next year. Really exciting. So this format's a little different from some of the other webinars that NABT has held. We are building something that we think is going to be really useful to you. Shout out to David Butler, whom you'll hear from later, my colleague here in Indiana. He has done a great job of introducing this program in different formats across our state. So we've got 7 talks for you. They're going to be held hard at 5 minutes. Friends who are speaking, we didn't talk about it yet, but I'm going to very publicly give you your 5-minute time. And then we're going to jump right to the next talk. So if you've got questions, please post them in the chat. We're going to collect those for the speakers and provide answers on the NABT website after this recording has been posted. So just a reminder that this is being recorded. If you are here as an attendee, we do ask that you turn off your camera because it's going to be a little easier for us to be able to manage the webinar. We didn't think this many people were going to sign up, and so we're just using a regular Zoom meeting. So again, if you could turn off your camera, unless you're the presenter, that would be great. All right, it is an honor for me to introduce speaker number 1, our very own Mark Little. Mark, your arm is hiding your magnificent NABT swag. Look at the other side, you're thrilling it. So Mark is the person who really invited me into the NABT community, and I'm really excited that we're going to get to learn from him today. He's retired from Broomfield High School in Colorado, and he's been a leader in our community, in the AP biology teaching community, and has done some outstanding work with NABT's Outstanding Biology Teacher Award program, the one that gives an annual award to teachers in each state. He served NABT in so many different ways. He was the Region 8 coordinator, the AP section chair, and he is a past president of NABT, having served in 2013. He's currently on the Long Range Planning Committee and assists with the OBTA program. I can never get that acronym. But more importantly, Mark was the first person who made it clear to me that NABT is this community of colleagues that really cares about great life science education. So I'm really excited. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can take a look at the materials that he has put together for us. All right.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you for sharing the screen because I had a couple tech issues here. Introduction to biodiversity and its importance, a topic because I'm from Colorado, we talk about quite a bit out here. And so I have kind of 3 general goals for you with this, kind of try to hit some things with this. One, to try to, this activity introduces students to biodiversity. You can discuss it and the importance of it in your community where you live, and also try to connect it to climate change. This activity is pretty simple, and it's evolved over time from when I got it, when I did it first in AP Summer Institute for teaching environmental science. So first thing with the procedure is I walk around the room and gave all my students back in the day handwritten D, and then I wrote Douglas fir on 3x5 index cards. A colleague of mine helped me evolve, and eventually I printed pictures of trees on cards to make it, and we decided to make it more local. And then as I did this, when I passed down all these cards with Douglas fir to all the students, I didn't tell them they all had the same card. I told them to write 3 names down of students, ideally not next to themselves. And then I had all of them stand up and say, we're a Douglas fir forest. Then I went up to one student and touched him on the shoulder and said, quote, you got the disease, you are now dead. Would you please sit down? And that student reads three names, the three names they wrote down on the card. Those three students sit down, they read the names. You continue until all the students have read the names of the cards. I have cleaned my class down so everybody's basically sitting down. One caveat, I tried it a few times, not telling students to write students that are not sitting next to them. And we had a very localized group that ended up dying and the rest survived. And we talked about how you can take care of a forest from that. So this was the first simulation of this, basically introducing if you don't have a very diverse community, a lot of disease and things can work through the forest very quickly. Second scenario is I passed out many different types of tree cards. And here's just a list sample of what is there. Same game, had the students write three students down, not sitting next to them, spread them out, told them not to write anybody next to them, had all of them stand up. I walked up to one student, tapped them on the shoulder and said, you have the disease, so you sit down. I said, what type of tree are you? They said a big leaf maple. I said, fine. Read the three names. And I said, are any of you students uh, big leaf maples? And if none of them are, that's where it stops. It also stresses the importance of having a biodiverse community in nature and how that can help minimize the spread of some diseases. Follow-up type things with it are, like I said, make it local. I've been, when I've shared this with teachers over the years, said make it very local for trees and plants in your areas. I know Lee's got a community, forest background. You see your background there. That'd be a great place to make it. Questions, have students do the questions in the notebook for exit tickets. I have several choices to use. Modify it for your need. I did take some classes on this on biodiversity from a Dr. Minton at CU Boulder. And he's got research in their primary papers. You can look at if that is your level of student. Talks about spreading how pine bark beetles spread through the hills, and if it goes, and how pine bark beetle, due to climate change, is actually reproducing twice a year instead of once a year, and maybe getting closer to three times. I haven't read the most recent paper.
1 minute.
So that is it. The resources on the last page, they should work on the PowerPoint.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. I think that activity really does sum up the whole point of this, which is to provide really quick hits that are useful to a wide variety of teachers, no matter their context. So thank you so much. All right, next up, we've got Lee Ferguson. Woohoo! Yay! So
Jazz hands.
part of why I knew that this gathering was going to work is that I learned something from Lee at NABT last year that just absolutely knocked my socks off. And it was one of these. It was a quick hit of a thing you could do in your classroom to identify how energy is lost from trophic level to trophic level. So I'm so excited, if you don't know Lee and her brilliance yet, to introduce you to her and her to you. Lee now teaches at Episcopal School of Dallas in Texas. Oh, Mark's time is up. Huh. Lee has won the NABT AP Service Award, as well as the Outstanding Biology Teacher Award for her state. She's also on the Professional Development Committee. They review the amazing sessions for the NABT conference. And she's the Region 7 coordinator, which means that I have the distinct pleasure of working with her in many different ways, including on the NABT Board of Directors as a director coordinator. Lee, you exemplify how great it is to go to NABT conference, right? You and I are both frequent flyers there, and I think
Heck yes. And if you've never been, go.
it's great.
Go. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, you're going to leave
Totally worth
feeling
it.
really energized and part of a community of people who really care for you and support you and are willing to try and share some really new ideas. So, all right, Lee, take it away for us.
All right, so I first want to shout out. I saw Gretel von Bargen in the audience, and so the activity that Kirsten is referencing is something I actually stole from her. And I did once work with a administrator who said that teachers make the best thieves. So shout out to Gretel for the water in the cups energy flow activity. And so what I am sharing with you now is something I got from another teacher and just modified to fit my needs. And the great thing about it is it's free. You don't need special supplies for this. I call it human protein modeling because modeling is, if you were teaching NGSS, it's one of the SCPs. Modeling is also a really powerful way to have students visualize things that are not normally, they can't see them usually. It makes them more real. It's also a great way to formatively assess student understanding of a structure or a concept. And so this is one that I use when I teach protein structure in my AP classes. As you can see, it gets the kids up and moving around. So if you have a big space, that is ideal. If not, going outside could work. If you can go outside, great. If not, no big deal. But what you do is I tell my kids, okay, you're going to be an amino acid. And so we get silly with it. I'm like, all right, you have to yell after me. I am an amino acid. And they stand in line next to each other, just kind of standing. And I demonstrate for them. I say, okay, this is the hydrogen. And I rub my belly. This is my central carbon. This is my carboxyl group. This is my amino group. And my feet are my side chain, my R group. And we talk about why do I choose my feet as the side chain. When I worked at my previous school, my students at my previous school didn't wear uniforms. So it was a lot easier for them to pick up on the fact that, oh, everybody has different shoes. Well, now I work at a school where the kids wear uniforms. So I have to kind of prompt them a little bit about why we're choosing feet, right? So we look at different brands of shoes as opposed to different types or colors or whatever. And so I have to prompt them a bit for that. Well, then, oh yeah, I forgot I did this. So here's all your parts. Well, then we model primary structure. They line up shoulder to shoulder. We kind of talk about what kind of bonds are holding proteins together. How can you model this? And so the first thing kids are going to do is they're going to try and hold hands. So when they do that, I walk up and I use my hand to kind of break their hands apart. And they're like, oh, we can't do that. And then they figure out, oh, we've got to link elbows. So it's stronger because then I say, okay, good, you figured it out that it's, a peptide bond is a covalent bond. You can't really break it very easily. Look, I can't separate you. So then we explain this is primary structure. It's just the sequence of amino acids. This is what's coded for by DNA. Well, then we model secondary structure. This is a little bit tricky. You can't do a helix. So we do a pleated sheet. And so what I have students do is I say, okay, every other student, you step forward a couple of steps, right? And so when you're looking at it from above, you can kind of see a zigzag shape. So at my last school, I had the fortune of having 2 floors. So I could actually stand on the second floor and look down and see that it was a zigzag. And so we talked about, okay, if you could envision this from above, what would it look like? And then I explained, well, there's lots of other secondary structures. The 2 most common are going to be pleated sheets and helices, alpha helices. We sometimes talk about beta barrels and stuff like that, but they understand, oh, these are going to be held together in place by hydrogen bonds, and this is the shape that it's going to make. Now it gets even more tricky and convoluted. So when we model tertiary structure, again, because I teach in a school where the students wear uniforms, I have to use brands of shoes instead of different colors of shoes to represent different amino acids with different properties. And so once I explain what, the different colors or different brands are to the students, I say, okay, if you're a polar amino acid, you're facing outward toward the aqueous environment. So they have to turn their bodies that way. If you're, polar, non-polar, you're facing inwards. If you're polar, you're facing outwards. So they learn very quickly that they get convoluted and twisty and all of this. And it's actually really kind of funny to watch. And so I model all of that, or have them model all of that. We obviously can't do quaternary structure. So we talk about limitations of the model because it's really important for them to understand that no model is perfect, but all models are useful. And so that's, like I said, super quick, super easy, super cheap. If budget is a concern, because I don't think that science needs to cost a whole lot of money to do it, and for kids to learn a lot from it. So there you go.
I'm going to do that next week, Lee.
It's
Thank
totally
you.
fun. It is
Yeah,
totally
and
fun.
you know, what I love about that is that that is one of those fact content pieces that students who need to learn it can really struggle with, right? And it is difficult to move it through. I see some people have also done a similar activity, which is really exciting. Thank you so much, Lee. You rock so hard. Speaking of rocking hard, what a delight it is to introduce you to John Darko if you don't yet know him. So John now teaches at Amherst Steele High School in Ohio. He is also a state outstanding biology teacher awardee and currently serves as the OBTA director for Ohio, helping identify other outstanding biology teachers. John is also on the professional development committee, and he serves as an NABT Bio Club advisor. And if you don't know about that program, stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about it later in this program. So John is, for me, at the forefront of using simulations and models in science teaching. And what I love about that is that if you don't have a background in thinking about that way or teaching that way, it can be really hard to think about having access to how to do that with your students. And I learned at an NABT conference from John about how to do that. So excited for him to share with you these ideas about using simulations and models and some kind of higher level thinking that you can apply directly to your own classroom. Take it away, friend.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Kirsten. So in 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I try to use simulations and really causal models to ways I'm thinking about diversifying questions around those. So how do I diversify the types of questions I'm asking students when I'm going through and using simulations and when I'm having them work with some type of causal model? So just as an overview, and I didn't learn this when I was in my science classes, but I did learn them in my philosophy classes. So anyway, there's really 3 forms of inference. There's your inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, and abductive reasoning. And I kind of like this little meta model here, a model of a model. So with inductive reasoning, you have a cause and effect. And from there, you kind of come up with some kind of explanatory model, explanation, or even a hypothesis. Then with deductive reasoning, you're given a cause and a model, and then you reason out what the possible effect would be. So that's deductive reasoning. And then abductive reasoning is where you're given a cause and, you're given an effect, like something happened, and you have a model for how the world works, and you can try to infer what the cause would be. This is like what Sherlock Holmes does and what forensic scientists are doing. So just as an overview, I have deductive reasoning being like your experimental hard-based science, so your hypothesis testing. Inductive reasoning, you're generating hypotheses. This is a creative part of science, a very creative part. You're coming up with a model for how you think the natural world might actually work given just causes and effects. And then abductive reasoning is also termed inference to the best explanation. So you're just trying to come up with what would be the best explanation. So with inductive reasoning, one thing I do is I have a website that has a whole host of simulations that kids can run experiments with. So they have these like independent variables here, and you can run a simulation. This one's for cellular respiration, and then they see these effects. So from there, here, I changed different really causes or independent variables, and then ATP concentration being the dependent variable. And from there, I have students try to come up with, using inductive reasoning, what would be a possible explanation for these results. So they're trying to come up with their own model for how they think the world works. And so this is one use is given, and it doesn't have to be with a simulation. It could be with experimental results, of course, which would be great, or even other research papers and graphs of what could explain these results. And then we have deductive reasoning. So I also worked with HHMI Bio Interactive to help build this kind of new app that they released called Model Builder, and it can build causal models like this. So here's a causal model that I just made of cellular respiration, and I'm going to just shrink this a little bit for myself. So here, you give students a model, and if pH in the intermembrane space is increased, how will that affect ATP production? So if we increase the pH here.
1 minute, John.
Okay, downstream, that's going to decrease chemiosmosis, which is going to chemiosmosis increases ATP. So overall here, if I increase pH, that's going to decrease ATP. So here students are reasoning, if I give them a cause and a model, they have to figure out what the effect is. And then lastly, we have inference, the best explanation. So here, same model, but then I give them some kind of effect. So electrons were added to this intermembrane space or intermitochondrial membrane. What could be a cause there? So different causes could be increasing NADH, increasing glucose, increasing FADH2. So overall, I just use these kind of 3 different forms of inference to kind of diversify the types of questions I'm asking students as they're working with models and trying to generate models, so that I'm not focused on one type of question over and over again, like deductive reasoning, but I'm really kind of getting at different types of reasoning that your scientists are actually doing. Thank you.
Whoa, that was so cool. I love this idea about having students use these models in so many different ways, and to have it be something that in your hands feels really approachable. So thank you so much, John. Amazing.
Thank you.
Next up, it is my honor and privilege to introduce David Butler. We have a word for people from our state. We're called Hoosiers. So David Butler is a fellow Hoosier. He's an Indiana teacher. Not only is he the co-coordinator of this webinar, he's been really involved in our state NABT affiliate. So if you don't know yet that you have an NABT state affiliate, lots of states do, and we're in the process of beginning to support some additional states in relaunching theirs. David is an outstanding biology teacher awardee winner for Indiana. He's a leader in HASTE, which is the Indiana state affiliate for NABT and also for NSTA. David is an active bio club advisor, and that's what we asked him to focus on today. You can follow his school's club on Facebook. He's amazing at sharing snapshots of classroom practice that feel really accessible, especially when I have been like, I tried to do something really hard and it ended up really complex. I really get a lot of ideas that make me feel like I'm in the driver's seat when I look at the work you post, David. And he's the Region 3 coordinator and is serving on the NABT Board of Directors along with Lee and me as director coordinator. All right, friend, we can't wait to hear about Bio Club, some quick hits.
Okay. Well, welcome this evening, everyone. We're wonderful that you're here. Yes, I've been asked to comment on the Bio Club that NABT sponsors associated with. And so what I decided to do for this presentation was to come up with some reasons why you would want to be a Bio Club sponsor, and then very importantly, why students would want to be involved with Bio Club. And then if we have time, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my own Bio Club. If you're interested in any of this, you're more than welcome to look at the resource link that's been provided. On that resource link has lots of information, primarily about how I run the club. But one of the things I have noticed that going to NABT conferences that we have a bio club meeting there. And what I love about that is that the sharing of all these different ideas. And, somebody might start in one direction, but then go to another direction. Myself, as an example, it seems like we focus around holidays. Some bio clubs will focus primarily on environmental issues. The great thing about this, guys, is you can make it your own, and that's one of the best parts of this. So, with regards to benefits for you, NABT will recognize your school in their American Biology Teacher Journal. You get like $100 from Carolina to help pay for any materials or expenses you might have for your bio club. Students can apply for the NABT Bio Club Award textbook scholarship as well. And NABT also provides some long-term project suggestions, things on research, guest speakers, tree planting. They make you aware of special days like Darwin Day and Earth Day. So I would highly recommend that if you're interested in the Bio Club and doing a Bio Club, start with NABT, go to the webpage and see what they have to offer. As a sponsor, you get to connect one-on-one more with students than maybe you do in the classroom. You get involved with community outreach programs and project leaders. You have the opportunity to do labs and activities and projects and presentations and field trips that you may find difficult to do at school or in the classroom. It also allows you to recognize your school and your affiliation at the national level. So it kind of puts a feather in their hat. You can showcase your activities. I've got a display case I show stuff in. Parent-teacher gatherings, I'll post things on social media. NABT Bio Club Facebook page, if you haven't seen that, there's posts there as well. And as I said earlier, one of the best parts is you can make it your own. As far as the students are concerned, boy, I mean, they just have fun doing it. They have the opportunity to do fun experiments that inside the classroom or outside the classroom. They gain some friendship with other students that have similar interests. They develop further knowledge about the topic that maybe you can't go as far in the classroom with. It looks great on their applications and their scholarships and resumes that they'll develop. It also helps a lot with 21st century STEM skills like critical thinking and teamwork and creativity. So if you lean towards kind of a STEM idea, it's definitely can be utilized for that. NABT has a Bio Club Student Award as well, textbook scholarship, as I mentioned earlier. At the end of the year, I give certificates to our end of the year assembly. And seniors also get a free green cord, and they actually get to keep this. And it's amazing how they fight for this in a sense. In my situation, they have to complete at least 5 activities throughout the year to get this. And they're very proud to wear this along with their shawl and gown for graduation. As far as I'm concerned, again, you make it your own. For me, what developed was a situation where the kids, my students, my kids, we do things outside of the classroom primarily.
30 seconds, Dave.
30 seconds? Okay.
Sorry, boss.
So that's okay. So I don't collect dues, for example. They pay for everything. We get our own T-shirts. In fact, this was designed by a student about 2 years ago. Most of my activities have turned out to be holiday related. So if you look at the resource folder, I thought I'd just given one, but I couldn't stop with one. So I gave a whole bunch. So feel free to look at those. We have a life cereal drive, life study of biology. So we have a life cereal drive to give to the food bank and just so much other things. But again, start with NABT, look at their website, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd be happy to address them. Thank you.
That's awesome. Even though we've lived in the same state for a long time, we actually didn't interface until only a year or so ago, right? And
Yep.
I've already learned so much about like student engagement. I think the other great part of a bio club is that in this day and age, it's really important to make sure that we have pathways for all students to be leaders. Maybe not just our straight A students or our student athletes or people who are already involved in an existing group. Our NABT Bio Club at our school has allowed people who don't always have a leadership role to be able to step up, and it's been really powerful. So thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you,
Always
guys.
a pleasure. All right. Speaking of things being always a pleasure, Chris Mansour, you, my friend, are my rock. So I first met Chris on like the first day of my first NABT. And Chris was like, it's great. You're going to love it. Have fun. I remember being like, that's like a big sell for like little old teacher me. I think we were in Atlanta or anyway, it was amazing. And so it's an honor to get to introduce you to the magnificent work and brain of Chris Mansour. What I like about Chris's thing is that he's going to share some ideas about anatomy and physiology. We know that across the country, lots and lots of bio teachers are now also being asked to teach anatomy and physiology. So a little bit about Chris. He's amazing. He teaches at Tiffin High School in Ohio. He's an award-winning teacher with an AP Service Award, the Outstanding Biology Teacher Award, and like me, the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. The note here says, Chris, that you have served in all the leadership roles in this organization.
Pretty much, I think all of them. So
That's pretty good. Region 3 coordinator, served on the board of directors as director coordinator, then became the National Bio Club chair and served as the 2022 NABT president. Chris, not only is your teaching good, you help us see the power of volunteering with an organization. I mean, a lot of the effort of the things that I have found most useful have come from teachers like you and the other folks on this call doing some amazing work. So I love this quick hit for anatomy. Take it away, friend. 5 minutes.
well, thank you so much. Again, I was asked to do some anatomy physiology, and so I'm just going to kind of go through. Sorry, these are my quick hits, and I only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to do that. So I like to first, I'm going to talk about the draw it, the joy of chalk and watercolors. Now, many of these activities I got from the National Anatomy Physiology, and I think Gretel this might be one of your activities. But the one I have on the left is a drawing of a heart, and then when I'm teaching heart anatomy, and the one on the right is histology through watercolors. And so what I've provided for you in these links is I have a link to the actual activity. The first one is where you gradually take the students through the steps of, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but actually going through the steps of drawing out the anatomy of the heart. I'm not going to go through the whole process just because of time, but what the students are able to do is by choosing the using the chalk markers, doing red and blue, they can actually go through, draw the structure, and then they're also able to go through and label the parts. There's a little checklist. I'm pretty sure, Gretel, this is yours, so shout out to you. You do a lot of amazing stuff. But then what's nice about this is that it has the ability, to for the students to like just check their knowledge of the heart and the pathway, and then I can go through and maybe say, what if we do this disruption? And so there's that. One of my students' favorite activities is histology and art. And if you've ever taught histology, you know that it can be pretty difficult. So I've got links here to a site that links to all types of histology. They can pick their histology. I tend to do this after we've learned it, and then I have the students go through and they pick a sample, whatever sample they choose from. And then let me go back to that thing. And then I also talk about impressionism. I have a lot of students that are interested in art that take my class. And so then I go through a little bit about impressionism, you know, the different artists, and then I have them try to mimic the histology of that tissue based on impressionism, a lot of dots and stuff. So that's just kind of my histology and art. Again, if you like click through that, you'll be able to see that I have all the materials for you. Some other things that I have, though, that I found with chalk markers, and I really love them, is that I do teach a lot of anatomy, like these structures. And so as a formative assessment here, I will give the students a list of structures to the digestive system. They have to do it out with the chalk markers and make them label the process. And I tell them, all right, tell me a story. tell me this process. And then I also have fun with Play-Doh and chalk markers. And so with this activity, again, learning the structure, having the students label it, identify the parts, but then also causing a disruption. So that's the joy of chalk and watercolors. I also, in my anatomy physiology class, we build a lot of things because I don't like to do death by PowerPoint. So we say build it. And then you got to ask yourself, what can you do with Twizzlers and eggs? With Twizzlers, you can build a model of muscle tissue or a muscle. And then with the eggs, I've this activity where when we're learning about neural anatomy and concussions, the students go and they design a helmet. They get an egg, they draw a face on it, they try to draw a skull, and then we actually go through and have them create these helmets that we test. And so often what I have with my students do, I use Canvas, and so they will create a slide. This is Johnny, and he created, I forget what his egg's name was. It was egging. But anyways, and so there's a picture of me and Johnny there with the egg, and we do 3 different tests there. But what I provided for you here is, here's a link to the muscle anatomy one. And so again, you use those Twizzler pull and peels, right? The real fine ones. And they go through, you need Twizzlers, you need saran wrap, you need some masking tape. And the students go through and they build the fiber. They do the endomysium, paramysium, fascicle, and this is a good way to assess them in a formative way. And then I have them labeled a picture because I think in terms of anatomy, a lot of the students that I get, they may not have taken anatomy. They heard it's a fun class, but giving them opportunities to demonstrate their knowledge. So this is that one here with making a muscle activity. I know I'm talking really fast. I'm just checking time. I got about a minute, I know.
You got 1 minute.
Yep, I know. The football helmet project, the students really love this one. Here's the outline, but their goal is to design and build a helmet that'll protect the delicate cargo. Key questions, there's prep, construction, and then what we do is we follow this up with a discussion about concussions. We watch, there's a film from Frontline about League of Denial, which talks about the NFL and some of their role in concussions. And then, yeah, so it's just kind of one of those ways for you to get your students to kind of like get hands-on, build stuff, and they actually have a pretty good time. And so those are my quick hits. And again, I want to shout out to, I wish these were all originally mine, but as Lee said previously, I do like to borrow from other teachers. And like I said, I think Gretel, this heart one might be yours. So all right, I want to make sure I stop on time. So I'm all set.
Magical. Hey, I love the idea of students in anatomy and physiology getting real life experience with concussions, which we know have touched so many students and their families. And I love the fact that so much of that is so low cost. Gretel, we haven't met yet, but I'm looking forward to connecting with you also. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah,
thank you.
Cool. Next on our program is Beth. Beth and I have also known each other for a really long time. I think you were also one of the first people that I met at NABT. Beth teaches at Western Sierra Collegiate Academy in California. She's an award-winning teacher, and she's actually won something that we haven't talked about yet, an NABT program called the Biology Educator Leadership Scholarship, or BELLS. She's the current Region 9 coordinator out west and also serves as an Outstanding Biology Teacher Award Director in her state and is on the NABT Awards Committee. You've heard us talk a lot about regional coordinators. They're responsible for helping drum up enthusiasm, communicate directly with members, and assist when groups need a little extra help and a little extra hand. So I'm really excited that you're with us, Beth. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten. And it's so very exciting to be here. You guys are literally in my classroom. Today was the first day of school. So I'm just absolutely jazzed that you guys are literally in like my favorite place ever. It's really cool. We're going to talk about, speaking of concussions, executive functioning, because about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury and I lost a lot of my executive functioning skills. And I actually went to the special ed department and I said, help, I'm not sure how to do these things. They used to be really easy. What do I do? And so they helped me to build my science classroom as well as a place that's a lot more helpful for students with executive functioning issues. And it also takes an awful lot off of our plates. So as a biology teacher, I found myself repeating myself every single day to the point where I couldn't remember from class to class whether or not I told my class the thing. I don't know if you found yourself in this position where you teach multiple class periods of the same class and you're going, did we review that thing? I feel like I know I've said it today, but have I said it to these students? And so I found myself just feeling like a broken record. And I thought, there's got to be some research on this. It turns out there is, how to bring students in and make them feel better. So biology is super complicated as it is. We don't need the classroom environment to make the science more complicated. We can actually really simplify this by putting in some routines. This helps learners feel safe and it helps lower the cognitive load. So we know that students make so many decisions every day. And if you can take your classroom out of being a stressful place and help integrate relationships, these rituals and traditions into your classes, then you are starting to get to the point where you're building leaders. And that was one of the things that I found, is that some of my students are so brilliant and they not only remembered what we were doing last class, which I would have on my note card, but they would say, you said this and this and this and this. And I was like, oh my gosh, your memory is like a steel trap. I'm very jealous. So I decided I'm going to figure out how I can build something that helps make a routine that students can lead and then follow, so that they're given more agency in class. Because we have so many leaders in class who have fantastic skills. And what it looked like was something like this. It actually really started during COVID, because I needed like students, I needed to see their faces. I didn't even know if they were there. And so we gave them these roles and they would turn on their cameras and they would say, good morning, welcome to our class. We're passing it over to person one. And we got really good with switching the Zoom around so that people in the class actually could see the faces of their peers. But now, this is version 3.0, and there's lots of versions. I have a creative director, I have director of operations, and all of these different roles in my class do the things that used to be completely repetitive for me with my help. We do this with this little thing at the top. It says Catestopia opening ceremonies, because you are powerful people. You can learn to lead a group, because it's nice to be in charge, because you're awesome, and because it's fun, and because traditions make people feel safe and comfortable. So before class, they'll come in, they'll pick up their scripts, they'll review the Google Classroom, the month at a glance whiteboard. They say, you know, welcome, here's what we turned in last time, here's the agenda, here's what we're working on. And they go through the script. Good morning, my most outstanding AP biologists. Today's date is this. Our AP biologist of the unit is Sally for cells. Thank you, Sally, for cells. You're amazing. And they absolutely nail it. And it's so much fun to watch. I've broken this into acts because my theater background is showing here. When we want people to do something a really specific way, we give them stage directions and we put it in the script. So I did that for them. The lab leadership enters the classroom, retrieves their script, completes their checklist so that they know exactly what I expect of them, and then they can have the agency to do it. So we'll have to transit to you. Perfect. Okay, sorry, Victory. How does this transition to your classroom? Because it probably looks entirely differently than mine. What we want you to do is, how do you want to call your students to attention? How can you summarize key information from the previous class? How can you have students remind learners of upcoming due dates? And then you write it out. What elements of your daily work can you actually have your learners run in leadership roles? And then build and foster that class discussion without instructor support. My goals by the end of the year, my classes run themselves. I start with a super short script. I start with pretending like I'm gonna run the whole thing, and then I slowly let go. My goal for you guys is that you can stage manage your class. You don't have to star in it. I hope that you find something today that fills your heart, and that the things that you experience also, you know, feel good to you, because that's my happy thought today.
And there's more stuff in this PowerPoint. I just want to let everybody know. You're going to go to those slides and there's going to be more stuff. I'm so amazed by like the diversity of stuff that has come up in, we're only 45 minutes in, friends. I think we're going to even let you out of class early. Absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much, friend. All right. Next, but certainly not least, we have a power duo, and I'm really excited to introduce them to you. So Alicia Goodfriend and Kelly Moore are not high school teachers. They teach at Walters State Community College in Tennessee, and they are also the 2023 and first recipients of NABT's new Excellence in Encouraging Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Award. We're working really hard within our organization in lots of ways to make sure that not only are we supporting teachers inclusively, but that we're giving opportunities and paths forward for teachers to support their students and maintaining inclusion and belonging and access. So, friends, I'm so excited for you to share what you've learned about supporting students. 5 minutes on the clock.
Well, first of all, hello, I'm Kelly. And I'm Alicia. Nice to see everybody. Want to do a quick plug before we start. If you're interested in these JEDI initiatives, NABT does have a JEDI committee. We meet monthly. We would love to have you join us. It takes a tribe, right? We need everyone together. So please feel free to join. But just a little bit of time, Alicia and I want to talk a little bit about some of the work we've done, but also we have a bunch of resources for you in the folder. We're not going to show them, but you can jump on and look at those. You probably know that if you look at data for Hispanic students, very few, the percentage of them that actually get degrees and certificates in STEM fields or science fields are very small, even at the community college level. They're much lower than all the other populations. And one of the things that we saw was that a lot of times high school teachers and high school counselors didn't know how to share resources or how to talk to a lot of the Hispanic students. In Tennessee, we have a very high Hispanic population. And the guidance counselors told us that they didn't want to ask students questions that they thought were too personal. They didn't want to ask students their status. They didn't want to ask students, can I help you fill out the FAFSA to go to college? Because they were afraid that they didn't know the answers to those questions. So some of the documents that we've provided for you, a lot of them are a little more Tennessee based, but some of the things are very universal. One of our favorites, one of the ones that we really wanted to bring your attention to was a scholarship list, because if your documentation status is a little questionable, you're obviously not eligible for federal aid. So students, we were finding in our college, were having to pay out-of-state tuition on top of regular tuition just for their classes. And most people can't afford that. I couldn't afford that. So our organization that we work with has been doing some really great research and trying to find the as most comprehensive a list as we could come up with of scholarships that do not require your status. So they will not have to enter that information at all. And they are across the country. They're not just those scholarships aren't just Tennessee based. That's one of our favorite resources. I mean, we've had students get scholarships off of that list. It's an amazing list. So definitely check that out. We also have information in English and in Spanish about filling out the FAFSA. So if you do have those students who are wanting to go on to college and don't know the questions or don't understand what things are asking, we do have documents available in our resources that will walk them through answering some of those more tricky questions. Especially a lot of our Hispanic students struggle because there's multiple families living in one household. And when you're filling out FAFSA, that can be a little daunting to who counts and who doesn't. So we do have those documents like that are very helpful as well. And one of our big things that we want to share with working with the Hispanic community is form relationships with your parents. Because in the Hispanic culture, family is incredibly important. And many times the parents want their student to start working immediately after high school so that they can start providing support for the family. they don't understand maybe that getting that STEM certificate or getting that credential can actually pay off in the long run. So forming those relationships with your parents. We host what we call bilingual nights or Noche Bilingues, where we invite the students and their entire family on our college campus, the high school students. We give them a tour, we feed them, we bring our college students, a lot of our Hispanic college students out to share their stories and
Because
answer questions.
representation matters, right? And so when they see other people like them, who are at that level and who are succeeding, then it helps to, I guess, bolster their confidence and make them feel like that they can do that too. And we found the
1
earlier
minute,
the better.
friends.
Awesome. We found the earlier the better. So if we can start reaching out to elementary school students and meeting with the families then, and then we keep getting those same families coming back year after year, then they're more likely to trust their students, their kids with us as students, when they're ready for that post-secondary education. So
One of the biggest things for me anyway, we had saw this family several times at several outreaches and on our campus, and they felt comfortable enough to reach out to us asking if we could point them in a direction for some help paying their electric bill. And so it was a huge moment for me because that meant that they trusted us enough to ask for help. They're going to let us continue to work with their students. So
That's
please check out our
amazing.
resources.
Okay, keep your videos on for a second, because I wanted to say one of the real strengths of NABT that I think is unique to our organization and that I've learned a lot more about through some work I've been doing behind the scenes is this idea that, like, these folks teach community college, right? We have community college professors, we have bioed researchers, we have people who teach at four-year colleges, we have people who work in informal education and outreach settings, we have high school teachers and middle school teachers, and even some upper elementary folks. We have this amazing overlapping circle set of communities of practice. And I love that the things you've shared with us are so applicable at high school and to build that sense of inclusion. It's often difficult for me to think about ways to connect my students meaningfully. And you've given me this idea that community college could be a huge lever for high school teachers who want their students to see what the future might look like. So thank you so much for your work and for your shout out into the work that our community is doing.
thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what a power hour, right? It's amazing. So what I'm interested in us doing is we really need to know what was useful to you out of this experience. So in the chat, we have 2 questions for you, and I hope that Jackie will post them in a moment. I'd like you to share something that you enjoyed or found useful or that got you thinking. And if you have ideas about other themes for webinars for high school teachers, we really want to hear them. We'd love to be able to bring you programming that isn't just in person once a year or at the couple webinars where we've been getting these amazing speakers. We want to help teachers build stuff for teachers in our community. So I'm going to be quiet for the longest I am ever quiet, which is like 20 seconds, so you can start typing. I don't know if you can hear my cicadas. What'd you like? What was useful? What other webinars should we host for high school teachers? While you're finishing typing, this is it. This is why we are NABT. This kind of event, this kind of community, this type of wisdom, this type of encouragement. And, you know, right now the cost of that is $6.58 a month, right? What resource could possibly serve you better as a professional educator? It's just incredible. And so for me, as somebody who is promoting scientific literacy and access for my students, I lean on what I've learned from NABT community members all the time. We haven't even talked about the journal, which has some really amazing resources in it and comes with your membership. This organization is for members by members. And so I thank you so much for taking this time out of your schedule, whether you've been with us live or remote. And I really want to thank our presenters. So if you're able to do so, if you could drop a thank you in the chat to our presenters if you haven't yet, and if they could start screening them so we can see their magnificent faces. Y'all have been absolutely incredible to work with. We got them out early. They're leaving with these amazing ideas about teaching. And I'm so thankful to all of you for being with us today. Woohoo! Watch for the resources. Those are already up. And then watch for the FAQ answers. If you had questions that you've asked or if you've messaged us, we'll see those when we take the Zoom, and we'll be able to take care of those. So, all right, everybody, have a magnificent day. Thank you so much for joining NABT for our first Quick Hits High School webinar. Take care out there. See you soon. They're all still on. They can't get enough. Look at these people who stuck around. That's wild.